Okay, so again, welcome this evening to Transitioning Your Dissertation Manuscript from 6th to 7th edition APA style. My name is Dr. Heidi Marshall. I'm with the Online Campus Writing Center. And we're going to talk today about sort of the nitty-gritty nuances that you need to know if you are in those final stages needing to move from the 6th to 7th edition APA style, or if you're at the outset of your dissertation and are just looking for a quick brush up on what is expected in the dissertation manuscript specifically related to APA style. So here are just a quick overview of the major sections that we're going to talk about today. That's going to include the running head, the title page and pagination, heading levels, spacing, and fonts. And then I'm going to talk about where to find some updated documents and resources as well. And then again, we'll dive into actually opening up a Microsoft Word document and going through the how-to for updating that manuscript. So per APA 2020, so that is the newest edition of the APA manual, student papers do not typically include a running head. So you might have seen in your coursework that running head is dropped as a requirement from your coursework papers. However, the Chicago School dissertation thesis manuscripts are treated more as professional papers than as student papers. And as such, a running head is required. So according to APA, anything that's being submitted for publication should have that running head. And because eventually you will be submitting your manuscript to ProQuest for publication, we are asking that you have that running head included. You want to keep in mind that running head should not exceed 50 characters. So not 50 words, but 50 characters. That's pretty short. I recommend 3, maybe 4 words for that running head. Your title, there's some changes to the title. You're going to position that title 3 to 4 double-spaced lines down from the top of the page. I'm going to demonstrate how to do that in just a moment. You want to make sure that your title summarizes the main idea of your paper. It is going to identify variables or theoretical issues under investigation, the relationship between them, if applicable. And here's where a change comes. There is no longer a prescribed length, but rather you want to make sure your title is simple, focused, and concise. APA used to recommend that titles be 12 words or fewer. They've dropped that, sort of very specific word count and in favor of just recommending that your title still be simple, focused, and concise. That said, I do think 12 words is a pretty good length for a title. Anything too long can get a little confusing for readers, and often if you have a title that's much longer than that, it means that you have included words that are not necessary. What APA says, words that have no meaning or relevancy. So for example, a study of isn't necessary because it's implied that if you've written a dissertation, that is a research study of some capacity. So you don't need the words a study of. Those just become redundant, not needed in your title. Now, one other new change is that you're going to have an additional line break between the title and your name. As well, your title is going to be in bold font. And I'm going to show you a demonstration of that in just a moment. Pagination, this is a really great change. We have really APA has really streamlined expectations with regards to pagination. So you're going to say, so pagination is now going to be continuous, and it's going to begin with page 1 on that title page. So we used to have to insert a couple of section breaks in our front matter pages in order to separate the pagination. We don't have to do that anymore. So this should be a big sigh of relief. You can get rid of those section breaks. You're just going to use standard page breaks throughout the manuscript, and your pagination again will be continuous, starting on the title page as page 1. Make sure that that page number appears in the upper right corner of the page header. And you want to make sure too that you're using automatic pagination. You don't want to manually insert those page numbers. That can cause formatting problems down the road, and it's also very time consuming. So I'm going to show you how to insert those page numbers in just a moment here, but just keep that in mind. So here is a screen capture of what your dissertation manuscript title page should look like. Now I want you to notice that there are some icons in here that you're probably not used to seeing in your manuscript. This is because I have, in this screen capture, I've included what is called the show hide icon. And what that does is it shows you everywhere that you have formatting inserted in the paper. This is really helpful to make sure that you understand you've done your formatting correctly. And the reason I have it here is because I'm going to walk you through how to do this. So essentially, make sure you have the running head. But actually what is new in the 7th edition is that you don't have to have the words running head, colon, and then your header. We're going to drop that. You're just going to have the header itself. And again, it's all caps, no more than 50 characters, 3 to 4 words is a good length for that. Pagination is upper right corner, beginning with page 1 on the title page. We have 3 to 4 double-spaced line breaks down from the top of the page before our title. The title is in bold and title case. Here again, there's that extra space between the title and your name. And the entire title page is going to be centered on the page, and it's going to be double-spaced. As a matter of fact, your entire manuscript is going to be double-spaced. But just make sure that you've set your spacing in Microsoft Word to be double spaced. Don't use that Enter key to create that double space. And I know I'm going through this relatively quickly, but it's just, this is sort of a preview of what we're going to dive into when we get that document open in just a moment. So heading levels, this is something that has changed fairly significantly from the 6th to the 7th edition, but the changes I think are all for the better because it's really streamlined how we think about headings and how we format headings. But the biggest change is going to be with this level 3 heading, which is now going to be separated from the paragraph text. So in our level 3 heading, it used to be that the paragraph started on the same line as that heading. That's not the case anymore. So that level 3 heading will be treated much more like a level 2 heading where you're going to have a line break before your paragraph begins. Another change is that all headings are now in title case and bold. Title case means that you're capitalizing all of the major words of that heading, and now they'll all be bold. So that really has streamlined things. You know, we used to have some in title case, some in sentence case, some bold, some not bold. So they've streamlined this. Every heading, again, will be bold and in title case. One thing that hasn't changed, though, is the concept of heading levels, right? That, you know, remember that they denote a hierarchy of information in your writing. So everything that's under a level 1 heading is as important as everything else under a level 1 heading. Everything within that level 1 heading, everything under a level 2 heading is as important as everything else under a level 2 heading. So remember, as you're using headings in your paper, you're denoting a very specific meaning and hierarchy of information to your reader. So do use these intentionally. Chapter titles are now going to be formatted similar to level 1 headings, which means they're going to be bold, centered, and title case. So our chapter headings used to not be bold, but now they will be bold. You also want to make sure that you have some text, a chapter introduction or overview between the chapter title and the first major section. So APA advises against, in other words, having one heading and then another heading without any text. And this should be a rule that you actually carry throughout your manuscript. You never have 2 headings in a row. There should always be some text between those 2 headings. So here is a visual example of what that might look like. So chapter 1, nature of the study. Following that, I would have a brief overview of chapter 1 for my reader, and then I would launch into the background section and so forth. So again, that chapter title is a level 1 heading, or is formatted as a level 1 heading, sorry. You have a chapter introduction overview before you jump into that background or whatever your first section of whatever chapter it is you are on. The pagination, upper right corner, is continuous. And then spacing. So let's talk a little bit about the spacing. Per APA 2020, so our new 7th edition manual, you're going to double space the entire paper. Okay, this includes the title page, abstract, headings, block quotes, reference list, table and figure notes, appendices, and so forth. So everything in your paper will be double spaced. There are a few exceptions, is that one, you're going to have that additional space between the title and the author name. So that's larger than a standard double space. You can single space the text within a table or a figure if it improves readability. So for example, if it allows you to fit the table on a single page, go in favor of that. So you can single space the text within the table and figure itself. You can also single space if you're using footnotes at the bottom of the page, you can single space those. Another nuance in the 7th edition is that it's not necessary to add blank lines before or after headings, even if the heading falls at the end of the page. So this is what's called an orphan heading, where you have a whole page of text, you finish a section, and then you have your next heading, and it happens to be the very last line of text on your page. You can just leave it there. It used to be that you had to try to get it off the bottom of the page, but we don't have to worry about that anymore. So APA did expand its list of acceptable fonts. However, the Chicago School has decided that dissertations and theses are going to stay in 12-point Times New Roman. This is for consistency's sake, for your copy editor readers, for submitting to ProQuest. It's just really helpful if all of our documents are uniform with regards to how they look. So we're going to stick to the 12-point Times New Roman font. And make sure that that font is consistent. Make sure your page numbers are the same font, that your headers are the same font, the running head, all of the text has to be in that same font. So we have some updated documents and resources. There is an updated dissertation and thesis general template. There's an updated dissertation formatting manual and checklist. The Writing Center website has updated APA resources, and the Writing Center website also has updated Microsoft Word resources. So I am going to now walk us over to some of those resources. So this is our new TCSPP community site landing page. First, let's find our dissertation thesis template. So if you click on the menu icon, then you're going to click on dissertation and thesis. And then on the left-hand side, you're going to click on Institutional Dissertation Documents. And from here, if you scroll down, you'll see this section called Dissertation Template, okay? And you'll see the updated 7th edition General Dissertation Template. So this is the template that you want to be using if you are going to use a template at all. Some students like to download the template and type right in it. Some like to use it as a model. I think either can work. If you are pretty proficient using Microsoft Word, then you might have better luck just formatting your own document using that template as a model. If you tend to be someone who fights with Microsoft Word a lot, downloading that template and typing right in it can be a huge time saver because it's pre-formatted for you. Okay, and I am going to now pop over. So if we go back to that menu, under academic resources again, you're going to scroll to the bottom and click on writing resources. This is our main Writing Center landing page. It's going to link you out to all of the campus writing centers. So you're going to come to the left-hand side and click on your specific campus writing center. That is to access one-on-one support from your campus writing center. What I want to show you right now is the content that we have on our online writing center website, because here's where you can access all of the information I was talking about with regards to updated APA content. So you can navigate here at the bottom, or you can also click on our writing resources here up at the top. So, and our APA content here. So if we click on APA and plagiarism resources, and I'm not sure why it doesn't want to, here we go. So, so click APA and plagiarism, then you click on APA resources. If you see here, each of these blue buttons is actually a link, and it'll link you right down to the section you're looking for. So for example, if you're needing help on in-text citations, click here. That's going to bring you right down. Whoops, I don't know why it didn't. There it is. So it'll bring you right down to our interactive tool for how to cite particular sources within your paper. We also have reference list entry examples, whole host of examples here on how to cite and reference different types of sources. APA 7 formatting. This is what we're looking at here, probably one of my favorite tools, because much like I just showed you on our slide deck with what the formatting is supposed to look like, here we have an example of that. And if you click on each of these numbers, it's going to tell you exactly what you need to do to create the that you see. So it's it's a great tutorial, particularly again if you're newer to Microsoft Word. In addition to these, as I mentioned, we have Microsoft Word under our writing resources. Under our learning tools menu. If you click on MS Word tutorials, here we have a number of videos that walk through step-by-step things like how to insert your page break. Probably our most viewed video is this one, troubleshooting the table of context or formatting the table of content. So again, make sure you're checking out these resources. I'm going to take a moment and just pause if anyone has any questions. Let me get my audience view up here. Let's see if anyone has their hand raised. Not yet. Okay. Again, if you think of any questions as we go, feel free to type them in. So what I'm going to do now, you should all be now viewing this Word document. So we have a sample Microsoft Word or dissertation document here. And this is one that was originally written in the 6th edition. So I'm going to just show you some tips on how to, if you have a manuscript, what you don't necessarily want to do, if you're already very well, on your way with your manuscript and it was originally in 6th, don't panic. It's not that difficult to actually update this manuscript to all of the rules that I just talked about. And I also think it's actually going to be more time saving for you to make these edits yourself rather than to download the 7th edition template and try to plug your text into that. I think doing the revisions yourself, again, actually will be easier. The first thing you want to do is come to your home menu under Microsoft Word. And then, as I mentioned, you want to have those formatting icons turned on. So under the paragraph menu, which is here, you're going to click on this icon. It's called the Show Hide icon, and turn that on. And so again, that is going to pop up and show you every place that you have inserted manual formatting in your paper. Okay, and for some, this is great. A lot of this formatting is necessary here, but some of it needs to be fixed or is not necessary. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to delete the header content here because I want to show you how to put that in. So again, you want your page numbers and your header in your document. The first thing you want to do is you're going to double click. So if you notice I'm here, I can double click in at the top of the page and that'll open the header footer tools. Or if you come to the view menu, you can open up your header footer that way as well. So here we are, we're in the header of the page and we want to put our page number in. So under header footer, I'm going to come to page number. We want it to be at the top of the page and we want it to be on the right-hand side. So we're going to do that. So now we have inserted those page numbers. Now we're going to insert that running head. Remember, it's 50 characters. So you want to place your cursor directly next to, so directly to the left of that number 1. And I'm just going to put a sample one here. So page header. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my tab key on my keyboard twice. Once, twice, and see, so now I have 2 tab arrows. That's what I want. And because that is going to kick that page header to be aligned left. So now I have my page number on the right, my page header on the left. You can just double click back in your paper and that'll close out. So now you don't have to worry about that. Your pagination and your header is set. It doesn't matter how many pages you add to this document, it is set. So right now this writer has double spacing. We can tell that by popping open our paragraph menu. And actually, it looks like the spacing is not consistent throughout the manuscript. So what I would do here, if I was looking at this document as my own, is I would select all the content on my title page. I would come to the line spacing menu and click 2 just to make sure. And then I would also click to center it all. Okay, so now I know I have strict double spacing and everything is centered on the page. So a couple of things to make sure that this is consistent with APA 7. We have a title here. It looks like it's 16 words. That's bordering on the longer, word count that we want for a title, but that's okay. There's nothing, again, there's no rule against that. So we're going to leave the title as is, but we do need to put it in bold. It's already in title case, so we don't need to fix that. One thing to remember from the slides is that we need to now have that extra space. So I'm going to hit my enter key because we need that extra space here. Again, we have 3 to 4 lines here. What is missing here? So notice when I added that space here, it kicked this line down on my next page. So this is something we want to avoid. You want to make sure that when you're formatting one page, you're not affecting the formatting on the other page. So I'm actually going to delete these line breaks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor next to the acknowledgements, and I'm going to go to my insert menu, and I'm going to insert a page break. Now I know that anything I do here is not going to impact the formatting here. But again, also new in the 7th edition is that all of these front matter pages, all of the titles here have to be bold. So your acknowledgements page is going to be bold. There is no all caps other than your heading. Nothing should be in all caps. So I'm going to fix that. But I do need to make that bold. So I'm going to double click that, make that bold. Here again, it looks like we're missing a page break. So let's delete that, insert page break. This should not be all caps. If we have time at the end of this evening, I can also show you how to generate a table of contents if that's something you are curious to learn how to do. So again, if we have time, I'm happy to do that. This should be called list of figures. Again, should be bold. Make sure that we have page breaks on each of these. And it looks like here again, we don't have a page break. Okay, so chapter 1, again, it's correct that it is bold, so that's good. And this is, depending on your program, might be introduction, it might be nature of the study. So check with your chair if you're unsure about what chapter 1 should actually be called. All right, so a few other things in the 7th edition manual, oops, we'll delete this comment here, is that according to the 7th edition manual, anytime you have a source that has 3 or more authors, you can abbreviate every single citation. So it used to be that we had to write out the entire, every name up to 5. Okay, so we don't need to do that. So what we can do is take those last 2 names, this one being a 2-part name, and we can abbreviate it. So again, if your source has 3 or more authors, you can now abbreviate all of those citations. So I see we do have a question. So Matthew has asked, for the title page, do we have to do the enter space in order to get the title in the center, or can we go to layout and page setup? So Matthew, you can, if you know how to do that in Microsoft Word and get that formatted, certainly you can. You do not have to use the enter key. That's a good question. Okay, so I'm just looking for other things. So again, as I mentioned, it's really not that difficult to get your manuscript in line with 7th edition, particularly as it comes to formatting, because once you've done those major things that I just pointed out, you have it almost all done. So the problem statement, this is correct. So then what I would do here, you just sort of want to scroll through and make sure, do I have everything correct? This is really a great, the show hide is a really great icon to make sure that you have all those page breaks where you need them. Again, you would want to revise that so it's not all caps. So what do we see happening here? Here we have our chapter title, and then we are moving right into a heading. So technically, we would want to have overview of the chapter here. Obviously, that's not going to be bold, so you're going to go left, not bold, indent. So you can do that manually, or you can select this. And here's another great tool you want to know is on your home menu under styles. You want to pop out this style box and have it set up. I like to have it over on my right-hand margin, because then what you can do is anytime you see text that should be plain text, so Times New Roman, 12-point font, sort of your standard text, we're gonna be calling that the normal style. So you can highlight it, you just watch me manually fix it, but you can also then just click normal, and it should do it automatically. Now, if it doesn't look correct when you do that, what you can do is you can modify this style. So you're gonna click on normal, then click on modify. And we want to have Times New Roman 12-point font. We're going to have it aligned with the right margin, but we need it to be double spaced. We also need to make sure under the paragraph that the first line is indented, because in our normal style, you do want the first line. Oops, I don't know where we just went. Here we are. The first line of every paragraph has to be indented. So now every time we click on normal, it should automatically format that content. Now, so we have it, so technically this heading should now be a level 1 heading, because the chapter title doesn't technically count as that first heading for your chapter. So this needs to be a level 1. So you see here, we do have an APA level 1 heading style. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to click into modify, just make sure that this is set up correctly. Times New Roman, 12-point font, bold, centered on the page, double spaced, making sure that there aren't any extra breaks. So now what we want to make sure is when you center something on the page, you want to make sure that it does not have a paragraph indent, because if it does, it won't be true center on the page. Okay, so now I know that that APA level 1 is formatted correctly. So I'm not sure particularly in this document, but let's say that this should now be an APA level 2 heading. I don't see that as a style in the student's paper. So adding a new style is quite easy. You're going to click on this icon. It says new style. We'll call this APA level 2. Okay, it's Times New Roman, 12-point, it's bold. This is going to be flush with the left margin because level 2 headings are double spaced. Format, come to paragraph, make sure that there is no first line indent. Then we'll click OK, and it'll just now automatically move that over to the left. It's automatically a level 2 heading. Labeling your headings, like I'm showing you, is critical if you want to be able to generate a table of contents. The way we do that automated table of contents in the front matter pages and make sure it's aligned, you have those dot leaders and everything is aligned and looking very pretty in that table of contents, is by labeling your heading. So you want to make sure every single heading in your paper is labeled correctly. So if I notice this one, and now that I've created this style, I can just click it, put my cursor on the text that I want to be labeled as that style, and it'll automatically do that for me. And so you would want to go through here. So here's an example. So this student is using a level 3 heading. So we know now that level 3 headings are different in 7th edition. The paragraph, again, needs to start on a new line. We need to get rid of that period, and we can create a style for the level 3 heading. So in addition to being bold, the level 3 headings are also italicized. So now I've got that automatically formatted as a level 3 heading, and I would just want to do that again here. Oh shoot, I think I did not label it correctly. So let's go back up here. Style 1, modify, forgot to call it APA level 3. All right, so any questions? I'm looking over at my question bar. Any questions about labeling your headings and correcting for that in the manuscript? I'm just going to demonstrate one more level 3 change. Doesn't look like we do. So I'm going to scroll down. Oops, here we go, until we find a table. Okay. So in APA 7th edition, one new change to our table style is that this table heading is going to be, the table, the word table and the number itself are going to be bold. So you're going to put those in bold, and then you will have the title of the table directly underneath it. It's still double spaced, and that is going to be italicized. Okay, so this student opted to do double spacing in this particular table. I think this is a great opportunity where we can say, let's see what this looks like as a single spaced table. And particularly if we take that off, I think it's still a very readable table. So my recommendation, although this still does have to be double spaced, my recommendation would be to have this particular table as a single spaced table. So I would go through, continue to label this, and scroll down and see if there's a figure here and make sure. So another table, we'll demonstrate one more. So again, table number itself has to be bold. You don't need to have any extra lines like this in the paper. So now we've correctly formatted that table. This is another table. I would play around, see what it looks like if you single space it. If it's still readable, then go ahead and make that table smaller. I'm going to see if there is a figure here because I'd like to show you, if possible. Just looking, here we go. If there's anything else that pops up in this manuscript. So here's a figure. So this is another big change in the 7th edition, is that our figures are now going to be labeled just like our table. So you're going to have figure 1. We'll just pull this up from below. That'll be italicized. That'll be bold. Now you can still have at the bottom a note if needed, and you're going to have the word note that'll be italicized. So if you have borrowed a figure from another source and you need to add your attribution or your citation, you can put that in a note at the bottom. So remember, the note text, that is still double spaced, but the text within the figure itself can be single spaced. And the big change again is that unlike in the 6th edition manual where the word figure came below, it is now going to be labeled just like you would label a title. So figure 1, title, and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to keep scrolling here. See if there's anything else that pops up related to 7th. Now, if you're finding that when you put tables in like this, the formatting is getting really frustrating, I do want to say that the Writing Center, we do help with Microsoft Word formatting as well. So if you're getting very frustrated trying to format a table, go ahead and make an appointment with us. Let us know that you're just having some difficulty with your tables and figures and formatting them correctly, and we can certainly help you with that. So Shannon asks, some figures have long descriptions to describe the content. Does the long description belong in the title or the note? Shannon, you would want to put that in a note. The title should be less than a single line. So generally, I'd say 5 to 7 words max for the title of a table or a figure, and then any additional information, add it to a note beneath the table or figure. That's a good question. That title really should just be a very concise description. And again, I see a lot of papers where the formatting of the figures looks a little bit like this. It depends on how, when you're copying and pasting a figure into Microsoft Word, how you've done it. So you can make it so that it's movable around the page. What I recommend is you can look at this, the layout option. So this says move in line with text. You want to fix the position on the page because that's going to prevent what we're seeing here where the figure is being cut off at the bottom of the page. It's there's a lot of sort of formatting nuances that would need to be corrected in this manuscript, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but hopefully that's just a good visual because I know a lot of students struggle with that, particularly again when copying and pasting in figures from SPSS or other documents. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the reference list. This is what I was hoping we would get to here. So just like with the front matter pages where all of those headings need to be bold, the reference list will also be bold, which it is here. You definitely want to have, get rid of all these manual line breaks and use that page break function so that you know your references are beginning at the very top of a new page. I would then also select, just double check that, yep, everything is double spaced. Also, you want to make sure that everything has the hanging indent done correctly. So I'm just going to demonstrate. It's actually done correctly here in this document, but to do that, you want to select the entire reference list. And then at the top of the page, you see this rule bar. You want to make sure that this bottom arrow is pulled over. So when there's no hanging indent, this is what it looks like. To create that hanging indent, you can just slide that over to the 1/2 inch position. Alternatively, you can open up your paragraph menu and then under indentation where it says special, click on hanging, and that'll create that hanging indent for you. As far as the 7th edition manual goes, there are some updates to the reference list. Now, we did that webinar last night, actually, so I'm not going to go through the nuances of the changes in the reference list, but if you haven't had a chance to review those yet, I do recommend that webinar was recorded, so I do recommend you go back, watch that webinar, or take a look at those resources on the Writing Center website because we do have all of those changes listed on the website as well. So at this point, I want to, I've gone through now sort of my checklist of the major changes, things that you're going to want to do to format this manuscript per the 7th edition. And I'm going to look now if you have any questions or want to raise your hand to ask a question, I can unmute you to do that. So just give me a moment while I read through the question box. So Alicia asks, is this specific document shareable as a resource? This one, unfortunately, Alicia, I cannot send out because this is an actual student's document. And although I have permission to use it tonight, not permission to send it out. However, if you want to send to me or to make an appointment to the Writing Center and send your own manuscript, I can make a video of doing many of the things I've done tonight within your manuscript as well, so that you have that on hand. But also much of what I covered tonight is included, let me find, is included in these videos here. So how to insert a page break, double spacing, centering, indenting, creating that hanging indent. So we actually do already have quite a few videos covering the content I covered this evening as well. Uma asks, what is the indentation for the content page? And is it also double spaced? Yes, so your table of contents, let's scroll back up to that. So yes, the table of contents will be double spaced. Everything is double spaced. This one, it looks like the student has done some manual formatting. My recommendation would be to delete that. You don't ever want to manually format your table of contents because it just can be a formatting, I'm going to be very honest, a formatting nightmare. It is really difficult to get everything to align the way you want it to when you're manually formatting that table of contents. Rather, what you want to do, and I'm actually just going to come through and I want to label a few more headings, is again, you need to make sure that every one of your headings is labeled correctly. So what we don't have is I would call this like chapter title as your heading level. Times New Roman 12, bold, centered on the page, whoops, centered, double spaced. There's no special indent. Okay, so this is our chapter title. Let's see if there is. Technically, actually, whoops. I'm going to show you one other trick real quick. Once I have enough of these labeled, you would have a heading here for your background section. That is going to be a level, whoops, not level 2, level 1. And I think, yep, so she has a problem statement. So level 1, you need to go through, in order to generate that table of contents, every single heading has to be labeled correctly. Now, the only headings that you'll pull into that table of contents, though, are the chapter title, level 1, and level 2 headings. So although I do recommend you label your level 3 headings so that they're formatted consistently, you don't pull those into your table of contents. So let's go through this table of contents. And I know I see some other questions coming through, so I'll get to those in just a moment. So table of contents, you're going to come up to this reference tab at the top of the page, and then you're going to click on table of contents, and then you're going to click on custom table of contents. Now you asked, is there any, Uma, you asked if there's any special indentation. There is. So you're going to have, much like it says here, that the chapter title, so that major heading is going to be a line left. Then there's going to be a slight indentation for level 1 and another slight indentation for level 2. You don't have to worry about that because it's going to happen automatically for you, and I'll show you in just a moment. You want to make sure this says tab leader, so that's where you get the ... You also want to make sure that this box is checked where it says right align page numbers. So you want to make sure, and that'll make sure that all those page numbers are uniformly aligned on the right-hand margin. Now what we need to do is click on options, and level 2. The level 1, so actually what we need to do is find that chapter title. That is going to be our first level in our table of contents. Then we're going to have a second and a third. Okay. Now you want to make sure, because Microsoft Word is going to automatically select some others, so make sure nothing else is checked. So you just want to make sure you have 1, 2, 3 labels. So your chapter title is 1. APA level 1 is actually 2, and APA level 2 is 3. Then click OK. Now we're going to click OK. And now this will automatically, see how beautiful that was? It just automatically pulled in everything that I had labeled into this table of contents. And when you see, all of that indentation has been done automatically. So I'm going to come back to my question area in the reference section. All references has to be double spaced. Yes, Matthew, that's correct. So the entire reference list will be double spaced. You don't need any additional spacing. So you don't have to add an extra space between each reference list entry. Just uniformly double space that entire reference list. So Shannon asked, could you give us a brief overview of the major changes in the reference list? So yes, Shannon, if there's a few moments left, I can go through some of those. Yep. Oh, or share a chart. Yes, I also have that. Okay, so let's go. First, let me show you the chart because likely we won't get to everything this evening. But if you come, we're back on the Writing Center, the Online Writing Center webpage here. If you click on, again, APA resources, and actually right here are our most recent webinars. So you can watch those right here on our website. So the citations, references, the style and formatting, much of that we've covered this evening. But Shannon, one thing you'll want to do is, if this APA 7 transition guide, this is a quick snapshot of all of the major changes. You can actually right click and save this to your device. It's a PDF. Okay, so you can have this available at any time to view later. So again, this very colorful infographic that you see here is a quick snapshot of the major changes. but let's go through some of them right now. Scroll back. Oh, sorry. One thing I was going to show you, because if you're used to, I sometimes like to scroll on the right-hand margin, because when I'm reviewing a document, I like to eyeball to make sure I haven't missed anything. But a really great way to quickly navigate through a document is to come to the View menu and then click on Navigation pane. Now, everything that you've labeled, should appear, and I'm not sure why it isn't. I was so excited to show this to you, but it should show you all of the headings that you have labeled. So unfortunately, it's not doing it for us right now, but every time you've labeled a heading, it should then appear on this left-hand margin, and you should be able to click on it, right? So it would bring you right to that particular section. You can also, though, click on pages. So this is a very quick way to navigate to the specific page that you want to get to if you don't need to be eyeballing things on that page. So it looks like, yeah, here we are, references. Okay. So I'm going to actually turn off our paragraph because it can make things a little hard to see. You'll see a lot of blue squiggly lines if you have your Microsoft Word grammar or spell checker on, because everything in the reference list is an incomplete sentence. So you can turn that off if it bothers you. If it doesn't, just ignore it. So one major change is that per the 7th edition APA manual, we now need to have, for every article, every periodical, peer-reviewed periodical reference, you need to have that DOI listed as a hyperlink next to it. Even if you didn't read it, I mean, chances are that you've at least obtained a PDF online, but APA 7th wants that permanent link to the source as part of the reference. You can see it's not here. If you have a reference, if you're using a reference manager and it's not there, you should be able to import it. But if not, another quick way to do that I like to do is I just select the title, go to Control Copy, and I just come to my Google, my search engine, paste in the title here. There it is. And often you can find, so there it is. There is the DOI. You can click on that. Okay, and that is going to get you that permanent DOI link. So you can copy that. So I just did Control C on my keyboard. And now I'm going to come and I'm just going to paste it in as plain text here. So that is necessary, that is required. So you want to go through and do that. I know that is, if you're not keeping track of that, start to do so right away, because you're going to have all of those DOI URLs in your document. In this case, this particular student would have to go through and add those for all of these reference list entries. Otherwise, there is, I'm just scrolling here to see if there's anything. Okay, so in this instance, you notice that there's a volume number but no issue number. A new rule in the 7th edition manual is that if an issue number exists, you have to include it. So let's just pretend that in this case, there is one that exists. So, oops, you would have to put that issue number, I'm sorry, so it's going to have to be in parentheses after the volume number. Okay, so that issue number must be included. Another thing in book references, you no longer need the location. So you're going to, after the title of the book, you can just put the title of the publishing house. Again, you do not need the location anymore. This day and age, the location of the publishing house is becoming less and less relevant because they're web-based, they're just so universal. So again, that location is not relevant anymore. I'm not seeing anything else that's jumping out at me here related to the reference list. There are a lot of nuances, like if you are citing a website or a like a TED Talk or a YouTube video, there are some changes to how we're citing that type of material. APA has also added reference standards for citing things like social media posts. So if you were pulling something from LinkedIn or Facebook even. So let me come back to my questions because I've seen quite a few of them pop in. So Melissa says, is the abstract, acknowledgements, et cetera, no longer in the TOC? So that's correct. So Melissa, the first thing in your table of contents will actually be your list of tables or list of figures if you have that. If not, then the first thing will be chapter 1. So nothing before the table of contents itself is pulled into that table of contents. Shannon asks, does RefWorks or other reference programs have 7th edition settings? Yes, they do. If you're having trouble getting that updated, then I do strongly reach out to the librarian. So Faye Callista specifically works with reference managers all the time. She's their go-to expert for that. So reach out to Faye if you have questions about how to update RefWorks for the 7th edition or any of the reference managers that you might be using. Melissa asks, is the DOI for book chapters as well as journals? Yes, that's a great question, Melissa. If the book has a DOI, you will want to include that. If it doesn't, so if it's an actual physical book, you don't need it. But if it is a book that's available online, then yes, you would include that. Does the DOI go at the end of the reference? Yep, so it'll be the very last thing. So after the page numbers here, that's where you'll put, it's usually begins at DOI URL, usually, whoops, DOI.org/10 point, and then you put in that full number. So generally that's what it looks like right after the page numbers. Here. Coming back to my question area, okay. I don't see anyone with their hand raised. But if I didn't answer your question and you ask, please do let me know. You can raise your hand, I can unmute you, or you can type it in to the box. So Melissa says, I asked this question in my writing center, but cannot get an answer. Is there a limit on the number of chapters in a dissertation? For example, if the results chapter is triple the length of all the other chapters, can it be divided into 2? Or more chapters. So Melissa, that would be, definitely a question you can bring up with your chair. Because I hesitate to speak definitively for the entire institution, but a dissertation itself, the very concept of it is actually, it's a fairly prescribed document. And it's called a 5-chapter dissertation, and it's just a standard format for dissertations. That being said, you are certainly going to have chapters that are much longer than other chapters. So what I would think about is if your results section is really long, think about using your level 1 headings almost like chapter headings, right? So remember that level 1, the centered on the page. So you're going to have chapter 4, results. And then you're going to have probably, if you're thinking about dividing that into 2, 3, 4 separate major sections, that's where you're going to use your level 1 heading. And then within that, you can break that down by level 2, 3, 4. You can even get down to a level 5 heading. So rather than a separate chapter, really just begin to use those headings more intentionally to break up that content. But typically, it's across, this isn't even specific to the Chicago School, but just across academia, the 5-chapter dissertation just sort of is what it is. Again, it's a fairly prescribed document. So, but again, I'm not speaking definitively, so bring it up if you feel very strongly. I would bring it up with your chair, see what they say. So I see we have just a couple minutes left here. I will hang out if there's any additional questions, but if not, thank you so much for joining this evening. This recording will also be available, and you should be getting an email with a link to the recording itself. And again, all of this content is also available on our website as well. So if you do not have a question, certainly you are free to go, but I will hang out for just a moment in case any more questions come in. All right, I do not see any final questions, so thank you for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.